Hello, this is DC Hammer. In the first episode of Open Mind Friday, we discussed the history and background regarding the relationship between the United States and Russia in order to set the stage for a more fact-based discussion of what is happening today between the two superpowers and what is really in play as the minions of the shadow government, the Marxist screaming media, continues to be fixated on removing President Trump from office using any pretext, no matter how ridiculous, but increasingly dangerous to the fabric of our constitutional republic. Today, the Marxist screaming media wants President Trump to go toe-to-toe with the Ruskies. As you know, colluding with potential adversaries is not allowed as far as Trump is involved. Yet a decade ago, when one Barack Hussein Obama was rising to power in the United States, it was a completely different story. Hussein's primary tactic in every initiative he pursued during his failed administration, from Iran, $150 billion shipped without authority in the dark of the night to the Ayatollah Khomeiniac, to Libya, can you say Arab Spring, to Syria, can you say ISIS, the JV team, to Russia, failed ABM treaty, to China, the Red Dragon runs wild, was collusion. That is, secret agreements or deceitful and even illegal cooperation to serve the bidding of his deep state masters to the detriment of the United States and its true allies. In this now upside-down world, President Trump proceeds with the transparency Hussein promised but failed to deliver, and the Dems and the Marxist screaming media are having none of it. From 2009 to 2016, the Russian bear ate America's lunch at the Hussein administration was either AWOL or just a pushover when faced with Russian aggression. Cloaked in terms of creating a constructive relationship, Hussein's approach enabled the Russian bear to call the shots and undermine U.S. power everywhere the two powers were involved. And yes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that was no different during the 2009 to 2016 run of former President Barack Hussein Obama. As the United States was attempting to bolster its allies on the western border of Russia, Poland specifically, and the Czech Republic, by giving them the tools that they needed in order to protect themselves from potential Russian aggression, the method used by that administration in order to roll out changes in order to provide security for that part of the world were immediately resisted by Russia. And even though Hussein's primary initiative was to establish a rapport with Russia, he obviously completely failed as he was unable to demonstrate to the Russians that the system that was being put in place was merely to protect that area against aggression from Iran. So with the inability of the President of the United States at that time, Hussein Obama, in order to assure the Russians that that system being put into place would serve a defensive purpose for that area from Iran, instead, the Russians continued to believe it was an aggressive act in order to threaten Russia itself. A little reported fact is that when Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Rodham Clinton launched their initiatives in order to move weapons from Mexico through Libya on to Turkey and then into Syria to arm and create ISIS and to bring down, which was the ultimate target, the nation of Syria by removing Assad from power, the Russians were outraged at what was taking place in Libya, but the deep state goals in bringing down Syria and extracting gold and other resources from Libya along the way was too much for Hussein and Hillary to resist, regardless of what the results would be with relationships with the other powers in the world. So with a failed reset with Russia and a failure to create a connection between himself, this is Barack Hussein Obama, and Putin, every other conflict that took place within that period only made the relationship and the situations worse. As Syria descended into chaos, it was impossible to understand who were the good guys and who were the bad guys in that conflict. The supposed rebels turned out to just be another arm of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The guns flowing into that area, thanks to Hillary Rodham Clinton, merely created a flow of arms in from the opposite side. So the area was awash in weapons. And when you're awash in weapons and there's no good players, then the outcome is not going to be positive. Even members of Barack Hussein Obama's own administration understood that the failures they were encountering were significantly due to the lack of leadership coming out of the Oval Office. Even the United States ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, in his explanation for the failures, he does not even get to the root causes. The root causes again being the need by the deep state to undermine North Africa, the Middle East, and the other areas including Syria in order for that chaos that they were creating to then result in a reset of a different nature, with Hussein and Clinton then being able with their masters in order to recreate that area in an image that was to their liking. Hussein loved to draw red lines, but he then, when the opposition, when the enemy crossed those red lines, he would merely create a new red line. You don't throw down the gauntlet and then pick the gauntlet back up and do a redo. That may work in Chicago politics, but it doesn't work on the world front. And as Hussein and McFaul completely misrepresent what was really going on, the root of what was happening in that area of the world, they continue to just talk about the impact on the surface area, the civilians who now it is learned since President Trump has reasserted order into that area and enabled Syria and even Assad to remain in power to stabilize his own country and to create a go-forward strategy that seems positive. Even the people that had fled, even the citizens of Syria that had fled during the period of the Hussein administration, are now returning to Syria as they see that the chaos is ending, as American troops are getting ready to leave. The United States and Russia work together in order to sort out the chaos and to stabilize things. The false flags are no longer flying as the supposed chemical attacks by the Assad regime turned out to be staged by these black hats dressed in white, pretending to be the protectors of the people when they were actually the people launching those attacks in order to continue to destabilize the Assad regime and bring him down. So then in 2017, Russia and U.S. relations began to change, disregard everything you've heard in the Marxist screaming media about collusion and what is going on behind the scenes between President Trump and Putin. The important things, as brought to you by Geopolitical Futures in this reality check, is that the relationship from the beginning between Putin and Trump is significantly different than that sophomoric relationship that Hussein attempted to create between himself and Putin, that Putin either at times just blew off entirely or ignored in order to pursue his own initiatives, knowing that the American JV team at that point would do nothing in order to protect its own interests in a serious way, and the Russian bear could run wild doing whatever they wanted in order to assert their authority through aggression, whether it be in Iran, Syria, or other spheres of Russian influence. So as the Marxist screaming media in the United States continues from the get-go, back in the early stages of 2017, was screaming about the cozy relationship between Putin and Trump and their misguided belief or miscommunicated counterfact that Trump was actually put in place through Putin's efforts to sway the United States election. Within weeks of President Trump taking office, he got on the phone with Vladimir Putin and they had a less than cordial conversation. Trump made it clear to Putin that their relationship was going to be more of a business type relationship, in that serving mutual interests would only work as long as the two had an understanding as far as their ability to get along in new parameters, without red lines, without resets, but with just the art of the deal enabling a level playing field to be reestablished so the two sides could proceed forward with trust and in a way that would bring them back from the brink, that adversarial position into which the Hussein administration placed the two superpowers. So starting with that phone call, January 28, 2017, and since then, President Trump, again, has been approaching this relationship as he does other business-type relationships. Think about the dramatic difference, the true hope and change that is represented by President Trump's America First strategy, the application of sound and successful business practices in all areas, especially the art of international relations, and the difference between previous approaches and what President Trump is doing is stark and dramatic. So until next time, this is DC Hammer signing off. Thanks for watching. And now the DC Hammer Show is available as an audio podcast. Just go to Podcast Garden or iTunes and search for DC Hammer or News Network Analysis Associates, NNAA.